The world is still processing the absolutely savage and brutal execution of an imprisoned Jordanian pilot by ISIS. Just yesterday, the tape of that was released, although the execution apparently happened in early January of this year. And we are processing it here at the Young Turks. Other media outlets are, and there's been some consequences. Now, first, I do want to focus on the media before we go to perhaps the long-term military consequences of that tape being released. Now, we chose, and we told you we chose, not to play any of the video or show any of the photographs yesterday of the actual execution. But I also feel like we made clear that that's not to say that there are not legitimate reasons for some news outlets to do so. However, there are also illegitimate reasons to do so, and Fox News yesterday, they chose that path. They did show some of the photographs on their actual broadcast, and then they made the entire 20-minute video available online. At the time, Brett Baer, Fox News host, said, "The images are brutal, they are graphic, they are upsetting. You may want to turn away. You may want to have the children leave the room right now." Yes, I think the children should leave the room right now. "The reason we're showing you this is to bring you the reality of Islamic terrorism and to label it as such. We feel you need to see it, so we will put up one of these images on your screen right now." So they did that. They showed shots of the actual execution. As I said, they made not just the execution available online, but nearly 18 minutes of someone speaking just in Arabic, spreading the jihadi message. Now, if they say that they want to show you the reality of Islamic terrorism so that you can process it and really understand it, that's a hard case to make when you don't put English subtitles on the entire thing. You just have 18 minutes of somebody speaking a language that, will upset and scare your audience, perhaps, Fox News? I feel like it's a combination of both torture porn, clickbait at that point, which when you're talking about the death of an actual human, in reality, that's horrendous. And also, they are just attempting to demonize and to cause people to want to go to war. I think that that's what it's about. It's about whipping people into a frenzy and getting them to want to re-engage on a greater scale and much greater cost militarily. And we have some evidence in terms of political quotes, which we'll read very soon, that that's actually taking place. Perhaps I'm being too hard on Fox News, though. What do you think?
Oh, perhaps you're being too hard on Fox News.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't say so. You know, I would just like them to really show me the reality of Islamic terrorism. If they really want to do that, wouldn't they show the coffins of the dead soldiers that come home from Iraq and Afghanistan?
The reality.
Oh, but they don't show that reality, do they?
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, this Jordanian pilot was dropping bombs and blowing people up. I don't know if you know this, but bombs also burn people to death. So I don't know, maybe we show the reality of what a fighter pilot does. Maybe we show the reality of what a drone strike is doing in Yemen. Maybe we show the reality of what we did in Iraq. We don't show any of that fucking reality, but you guys want to show the reality of how horrible the Islamic State is. Why don't you show the reality of how horrible Saudi Arabia is, who beheaded 80 fucking people last year? Why don't you talk about how horrible they are? You don't. This is propaganda, and you're using it for propaganda, your own propaganda. By the way, you're doing exactly what the Islamic State wants you to do. So maybe if you sit down, Roger Ailes, and you go, hey, I wonder what ISIS would want us, how they would want us to react, and then do the opposite. But what you're doing is you're doing exactly what ISIS wants you to do, because you're a tool, you're anti-American, you don't really give a shit about anything except making money, and you're willing to terrorize your own fucking country to do it.
Yeah. Terrorize your own country. I mean, that seems to be what the issue is right now. It hasn't ignited terror necessarily in Jordan. It seems to have backfired in Jordan. If their idea was to recruit more people to their cause, it seems to have completely backfired there. But it's working great here in the United States, where suddenly we're hearing people talk about, oh, what more shall we do? The U.S. has to do something. Somebody has to do something.
Yeah.
And it's got to be the United States.
Yeah, I mean, the initial backlash in Jordan was, I guess it's sort of weird, tragic irony. Originally, the Jordanian pilot was supposed to be used in a somewhat complicated prisoner swap with someone being held, a convicted terrorist or attempted terrorist, a female bomber that Jordan had been holding for a number of years. That terrorist has now been executed by Jordan. So, I mean, the entire negotiation was conducted under entirely false premises since the person had already been executed at that point. But Sajida al-Rishawi has been executed. Jordan is vowing renewed military efforts against ISIS, and that's the complicated thing. I think it's sort of a two-pronged. They want to get people to join them, perhaps even from Jordan. They also want to continue the military conflict. And as Jimmy perfectly said, American politicians seem to be lining up to give them that. And yeah, let's not gloss over. they put out the tape to cause people to want to engage in a permanent military conflict, because so long as there is an international other that they can point to and say, this is why your lives suck here. It's because America, it's because they're bombing us. That's why they put it out. And Fox News is putting it out so that we will engage in that very military conflict.
Oh, you mean that?
That's pretty ridiculous.
So the
Yeah.
Fox News is actually being counterproductive to this real aims of America? When has that ever happened before? You mean a news station owned by a Saudi Arabian and a guy from Australia doesn't really give a shit what's in the best interest of the United States? That is hard to believe. You mean a warmonger like fucking Rupert Murdoch wants more war? That is hard to believe. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's going on. And nobody else is calling that shit out, by the way, right? No one is saying that. No one is saying, you know, you watch the mainstream news and no one is saying, hey, by the way, the reason why, exactly what you just said, the reason why they put this video out is so that we'll want to go to war with them even more, in a permanent state of war.
Yeah.
Jordan did, by the way, Jordan wanted to show how bad and barbaric those guys were, ISIS was. So what they did was, we're going to kill you, some of your unarmed prisoners. We have prisoners, we're going to kill them, we're going to slaughter them, which I got to be against the Geneva Convention. I don't know. Can you kill prisoners of war, or are they going to say?
Well, technically, they're not. At least Sajida al-Rashawi was, she tried to blow up. She tried to commit a terrorist attack. The bomb didn't blow up. She survived. She was convicted and sentenced to death like 7 or 8 years ago.
Now, us invading Iraq, was that a terrorist attack or not? Because they didn't have anything to do with 9/11. Was that a terrorist attack when we did that, or was that so? If a Muslim does something, it's a terrorist attack. But if we do it, it's a whoopsie, whoopsie daisy. No. We're trying to help you guys.
Now. You understand?
Yeah.
It's funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Now we do have a statement from President Obama about it, and who knows what he's going to say in the coming weeks. But at least in this quote, he's not taking the position that someone like a John McCain, which we'll get to, is. He says, as we grieve together, we must stand united, respectful of his sacrifice, speaking about the Jordanian pilot, to defeat this scourge. Today, the coalition fights for everyone who has suffered from ISIL's inhumanity. It is their memory that invests us and our coalition partners with the undeterred resolve to see ISIL and its hateful ideology banished to the recesses of history. Now, we are always careful and watchful to see whether or not he's going to propose more spending, more soldiers on the ground. It's likely that that will be coming. He could have used this opportunity to announce some massive escalation. He chose not to. Maybe it's pathetic that that's all we can expect of a Democratic president, but at least right now he's not using it for that. However, on the other side, John McCain, a man who occasionally, particularly when it comes to issues of war in some cases, but mostly torture, says reasonable things, is a reasonable person. Here, completely unreasonable. Let's play a couple of his clips. Here's the first where he's talking about the fact that we're apparently losing in our military conflict against ISIS.
On behalf of all members of the committee, we'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the family of the brave Jordanian pilot brutally murdered at the hands of ISIL. Together with his family, the Jordanian armed forces, and the people of Jordan, we mourn the loss of a hero that has galvanized the nation and the world. I hope this heinous crime finally leads us to put in place what thus far has been lacking, a comprehensive strategy to achieve the President's stated goal to degrade and destroy ISIL. Let there be no doubt, we still do not have a viable strategy to counter ISIL, and if you're not winning in war, you are losing.
What is a viable strategy?
Well, he won't
blow them up good. You got to keep blowing them up, spend money, blow them up, send boots on the ground, blow them up. You got to give arms to the rebels who are on our side. You got to spend more money. You got to put boots on the ground. You got to blow them up.
Yeah. Well, actually, talking about giving equipment and arms, why don't we play the second clip where he talks about the resources we should provide to Jordan?
America has no greater ally in the fight against terrorism than Jordan. And as we made clear to King Abdullah in our meeting yesterday, this committee's immediate concern is to ensure Jordan has all the equipment and resources necessary to continue taking the fight directly to ISIL.
So the viable strategy is money to Jordan, so that Jordan can do this, I guess, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, but he
still wants us to bomb them and to continue to intervene by bombing people in the Middle East.
Yeah, but you'll note that even there, I mean, he's talking about giving more money to Jordan. We support Jordan as it is. Jordan was already bombing them. That is not a new strategy. If your point, John McCain, is that Obama's strategy, which Look, I don't like the money that we're spending. I don't like the fact that it seems entirely counterproductive to engage them in a way that we know from the past decade and a half has only created new terrorist and entirely new terrorist organizations, such as ISIS, for instance. But at the same time, we know that their ability to take over new territory has been, at least in the short term, neutralized. They've been pushed out of some of the territory that they had already taken. So it doesn't seem entirely accurate to say that our strategy is 100% flawed. Perhaps long term it's flawed. But John McCain is not proposing anything new. He's saying that Jordan should bomb them. That's what they were doing. That's why the Jordanian pilot was killed, because
that's how they
he
got
was
him.
trying to bomb them. His plane went down outside of Raqqa. He was captured and then executed. John McCain, like all the Republicans, will not say what they would do differently. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to say that Obama's policy is 100% flawed, it has no chance of working, and we continue to support it implicitly in everything that we do. With no new strategies, nothing different, perhaps more money.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's basically the same strategy that we've had since, what, the 1930s, which is, the United States intervenes to protect its own interests and continues to meddle and to overthrow countries and install dictators and support these incredibly oppressive regimes because it works for our long-term interests. Of course, we're able to protect our flow of oil.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's really all that this is about, and it's a pretty horrible way to conduct business, I think.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the fruits of this, of decades and decades and decades of intervention meddling.
Yeah. Yeah, and
what do you do? I mean, it's a mess. It's a total mess.
It's just amazing to me how easily ISIS can completely manipulate the entire Western mainstream news media. It's so easy, as if they're not having help, by the way, too. Like, who knows if the CIA isn't making them do these videos or giving them ideas or whatever, because this, I mean, really, as soon as the people get war weary in America, we find a brand new boogeyman, and now it's ISIS. They're worse. They burned a guy alive. Again, we don't show, I used to have a joke about when the difference between CNN and Al Jazeera is CNN shows the bombs taking off and Al Jazeera shows the bombs when they land. Right? So that's the difference. Why don't we show when the bombs land? We don't do that. We don't even show our own dead soldiers in America. So all of a sudden we have all these balls. We want to show you how horrible ISIS is. We're doing just as much horrible stuff. We're killing way more people all the time. Look what we did in Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of dead people. You think some of them burned to death? I think they did. So let's stop pretending that our war is antiseptic, that when we kill people it's nice. We do it. We don't do it horribly. We go over, we tap them on the shoulder, and then we give them a little pill, and then they fall asleep. No, we burn them. We drop bombs on them. We blow their heads off. We kill women. We bomb wedding parties with drones. So we're killing all types of people in all types of horrible ways. So let's stop pretending that somehow ISIS kills people. We just got done admitting to the whole world that we tortured motherfuckers for a decade. For no reason, by the way. We let untrained people who were sadists go in our name and torture people who we captured on the battlefield.
We're willing to spend trillions of dollars, kill hundreds of thousands of people, but we don't actually show it.